communication. This is, communication is so key in all areas of our lives.
Hmm.
And I think people often forget that, and think that communication is easy, and it's not always. And I am not telling Tony anything new, because we all come at a conversation with a whole big bag of
Hmm.
previous experiences and
Yeah. And I think, yeah, communication, I think it's confusing for people when I hear this, I speak to people. They think communication's all words. That can be one of the biggest things that people get wrong. Communication is not all about the words you use or the
no.
language you use or anything. Communication can be actually how you actually look at someone the first time you see them, how you dress, how you act, your facial expressions. Your hand, me, usually hand expression is the biggest thing people say to me. I talk with my hands all the time, which seems a really big trait in Scotland, especially in Glasgow. People do it all the time. But that's us communicating with that. A lot of time you can watch someone in Glasgow and know what they're actually saying without looking at their lips. Just watch their hands move and you know what they're actually telling someone. Communication is a vast thing. So never get bogged down with just about what you say. It's a whole package you have to consider.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as well, like what I had this recently actually, where I got into a bit of a kerfuffle with someone. Well, no, I was quite upset with him. Uh, because because he went from the start of the conversation straight through to the conclusion of the conversation without pausing to do the middle bit.
Mm.
And I was like, but I said, I get that we have to get to the solution. Like, it was problem, and then he was like, okay, solution. And I was like,
Mm.
no, no. No, I need you to first acknowledge that the problem is a problem.
Yeah. And it's
Because otherwise I am not open to the solution.
that's it. People are not always ready for a solution until you educate them. And that's what's great about communication. It allows you to educate people before like that, before you can get to the end. Yeah, if you go straight from, you think of a book, you don't read the intro to the book and then go to the last bit of the chapter and go, that was great. I now know what happened. You did the bit in between is the important part. And
Yeah,
it's the same as what we do. People say in business, but I want to get to here. Yeah, but you need to enjoy the journey on the way there. That's the communication side of
I
it, as you're
love
doing that.
I love the book one as well, but I heard someone say at some point, when you go on holiday, when you go on a trip, right? You go away, and then after a couple of days you come back, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you go from the beginning straight to the end, that means you're just staying home.
Yes. No,
So
you're doing
the
it.
bit
Yeah,
in between is the bit that's interesting, right?
that's
That's
it.
where the stuff happens.
Yeah,
Because
that's the
otherwise,
journey.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
and I think that's true for all the communication. And I think as well, like what happens as we are going through that process is that that's when new solutions present themselves as well, right?
yeah,
Like, because sometimes we think the solution is this, but then as we're talking through it, as we're exploring and as we're interacting with each other, suddenly there's a whole different avenue that we hadn't even considered yet. And this is
yeah.
why I often also say, like, we can't be creative in a vacuum, right? Because
Mm.
as long as everything stays in our brain, it's just looping around. We need new input. Sometimes we need someone to poke at that
Yeah.
loop so that it breaks. Um, and so that we can take the next. And that's, I think, what communication needs to do as well, right? Like, it's not just, and this is maybe, obviously I think about marketing and messaging a lot, because apparently that's what I do. Um, but what I think a lot of people think about, oh, this is what I need to send, right? Like, a lot of
Mm.
marketing is, oh, I'm sending, rather than I'm having a conversation with potential clients,
Yeah.
right? It has to be a give and take.
Mm.
Even when it's just us posting, we still have
Yeah.
to we have to invite the interaction into it.
Yeah. And I remember some when I worked in a bank, and it was one of my first managerial positions, and I really wanted to impress. So I was invited every week to the senior management table every Friday when you'd have to tell what your departments were doing. And the head of all the sales department was always sitting next to me, and I used to be in his department before I got this job. And I'd listen to Ian talk to him and I'd go, I know exactly what he needs. So I would away and do it, put it out and get stuff put on his desk. That was great. A few weeks later, I was doing this all the time. I came to one of the meetings and Ian turned around and said, it was to give feedback in us all. And he said, look at the feedback I give you, take it as really good, but then see if you can learn from it. And I looked at the feedback and it said, Tony knows what I need before I even need it myself, and he actually gets it done before I'm ready to do it. The problem is I haven't made the decision. So I thought I knew what he needed, sure from what he said he needed. I ran away, go and find all the information, put it together as a package and gave him it. And he thought it was brilliant, except he still had to walk through the ideas of whether this could work or no. Is there any other options or everything? I didn't hear that. I just heard, I need this. And when I started working with clients, one of them said to me, and I used that analogy when they said, but I want to get my business to here. I went, that's great. But what about the journey between here and getting your business to there? I'm not really worried about that. I went, well, so how do you build foundations in your business if you don't go on that journey? If you suddenly went, I want to get 10,000, I don't know why. I always say, I don't know why 10,000 a month, but they always say that. He wanted 10,000 a month. At this moment, he was on nothing. And that's all that mattered, but he wasn't worried how he got there. I went, then you get there, and what happens? Well, I'll look for the next month. I went, yeah, but you've not built that foundation. There's no pipeline, there's no nothing. So you'll get to that point from something great, luck or anything, and then you can't go anywhere unless you learn how to communicate and educate people on what you do. And then people then will start coming to see you. And I went, oh, I thought I had to get to here. I went, well, no, the journey in business is the best part. Yeah, there'll be bits that are hard. There's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be big boulders in the road. You can't get round or anything at times, but it's part of the journey and it makes you, yeah, it's like life. You said earlier, Mags, about all the stuff you bring with the experiences,
Yes.
but good and bad, all those experiences make you the person you are.
Yes.
You do not want to change it. I keep hearing
And
people about want to get rid of it. You don't, because they make
also,
you.
I have to say that if anyone wants me to get rid of my emotional baggage for an hour or so, I am happy to do so. Please provide an emotional baggage locker, and I will happily put the stuff in there. Uh, but no, that's not how it works, right? Like we bring our stuff to the table, and some days that has more impact than others. But yeah, I mean, in the context of my book and all of that stuff, I always say, because there's so many people who would say in around sort of childhood trauma and things like that, like, oh, I wish it never happened to me. And I always say, like, I can't imagine that, because it would mean wishing away like the first, I don't know, 30 years of my life. And
Yeah,
who would I be without those experiences? I don't know.
that's it.
um
It's the emotions we want rid of that attach to it. Like you've just said, with the baggage, the
yes.
emotional side. You want rid of that, but not the actual learnings you've got from it. Because that's how, not how you learn, but that's how you help other people. And you mentioned your book. What's your book called again?
The Ugly Duckling Diary.
And where can people get that?
They can go to houseofhives.com and find it there.
Right. Okay, just thought I'd mention that since people must be interested what book she's talking about. Right, so let's look at that. But yeah, it's so important the journey people are on that we don't want to get rid of things. All these things make us better, and as business owners especially, when you hit things that don't work, you've got a lot of learning from that. You're learning things you will not do again, but you're learning what other things you need to do to get past that. So if it happens again, you don't have that stress or worry about it because you can learn to communicate to people. I know how that is, and you can help other people with that because your experiences help other business owners just like you do in life. And it's just making sure for me the important part is enjoy the journey when you're on. Stop worrying what's going to happen. It's this anxious moments we have, but what if this happens? What if that happens? Okay, what if it doesn't happen? What's going to happen? What if you don't end up with these bad things? What if they end up with everything being great? People don't communicate to themselves that way. The first part of communication should be how we talk to ourselves before what you worry about what you say to everybody else. How do you talk inside? That's the important part that for people, it's
Yes.
the hardest thing is what
And
you say inside.
it will make people look at you, but you can mid thought go, no, Mags, that's not how we talk to ourselves
Yes.
out loud.
But what have I explained before? If you're a solo business owner, you're not mad by talking to yourself. You're just having
Oh,
your annual board meeting.
yes,
That's all it is. You're having
yes.
a board meeting in your own mind because you've got nobody else to have it with. But you think about it. People say that, but I'm talking to myself. I walk down the street every day and I don't know whether people are talking to themselves or on the phone because I can just hear them talking and you're like, did they say to me?
Especially when you have headphones on or something, like
Yeah.
everybody's going to assume you're on the phone. It's fine.
Right, so that's all you do. You put some headphones on, or even one thing like this, a earpiece on, and you can talk to yourself all day long, and people don't know you're doing it. They think you're talking to someone else.
But I
That's
think,
communicating.
but I think, I think it is important what we're saying is, it is about the journey and it's about the discovery and it's about the, the expectations and the assumptions that you're making about what is going to happen in a conversation. And I think that's also where people get it wrong a lot of the time is because they've had the conversation in their mind already, or they're having it, and they're not actually present in
Right.
communicating when it's
What's my
happening.
favourite saying with that?
Try
Do
not
you
to do
know?
that.
Nope. People are always listening to reply. They're
Yeah.
not listening to hear.
Yes.
That's what you're saying, and that's important. But any communication, what we do as individuals is we listen to the person, we hear something that triggers something in our head and go, I know how to fix that. A bit like you said earlier about the person that goes from here to the solution. We're jumping in, but we're missing something important that that person said because you end up talking over them and you're jumping in with something, but you've not got the whole picture. Remember what I said earlier about the senior manager? I only heard bits of
Yeah.
that, stopped at that point and started writing notes down because I never heard the rest of his conversation. I went away and did it, and it was wrong. So,
Whereas, whereas Tony, what is interesting about that to me as well is like when we have a conversation with someone and they maybe I had this recently and there was we were talking and there was like these long silences, but it would like she was just so considerate of the answers she was trying to give me, and I think every one of us appreciates someone who puts thought into what
mhm,
they're communicating and takes time to articulate those thoughts carefully. And that is a level of presence as well in a conversation, right?
mhm,
But for some reason, when we are doing it, we feel like we need to immediately
yeah,
answer the question, right? And I think like just even allowing yourself to just breathe and take a
mhm,
beat before responding to something, that makes it responsive rather than reactive.
yeah,
And that always builds for a better outcome, whether it's a
yeah,
conversation with yourself or someone else.
yeah. And that's why when people ask you questions about your business and you don't know the real answer to it, don't make something up or try and give them an answer. Say, that's a really good point. I'll come back to you with that. I'm going to have a good think about that and I'll come back and get you the right answer. People will appreciate that more, as you just said, because the fact of, wait a minute, they're human. They don't know everything. I do a lot of Q&As and I get this in Q&As and somebody will say to me a question, I'm like, right out of left field, and I'm like, I was not expecting that because it's not in the subject we're actually doing. So I'd say to them is, I'll tell you what, I can't answer it now because it's not really relevant right now, but what I want to do is I'm going to really think about that. I'll get back to you after the session and I'll get the answer you're looking for. Is that okay? Yep. And people, as long as you've said that, they're happy with that. But it is this, you're right, this, everything in the world now seems to be instant. We want everything instantly. But taking that a little bit of time to think about it and get the correct answer for someone is better for you as well because you feel you've communicated what you want to do better and they get a better reply to it. So you're
Yeah.
right, is stop reacting to things and respond to it.